Hello all. Symbiosis Center for Information Technology welcomes you all to the 11th episode of On Air with AdCom. Today we have with us Mr. Varun Chhabra, a seasoned data scientist with an extensive experience across industries like healthcare, telecommunication, energy, and retail. With certifications in Spark NLP, Gen AI, Google Contact Center AI, and leading cloud platforms, Mr. Varun excels at building intelligent virtual agents, optimizing customer experience, and leveraging Gen AI models like LLMs and GANs to drive innovation. His expertise includes AI powered pipeline, imaging AI for automation, and large scale data processing. Known for building technical excellence with customer centric strategies, Mr. Varun bridges innovation and business impact seamlessly. Join us as we dive into his journey, insights on Gen AI, and the future of intelligent automation in the ever evolving industry. Pleasure to have you on board, sir. How is it on your end?
Hey, Helene, thank you so much for the formal introduction. Everything's going amazing. I hope the same is at your end.
The same here as well, sir. So, starting off, I would like to ask you a few questions. Since AI is very much into discussion nowadays, so for those who are unable to distinguish it from traditional AI, how would you define generative AI and what sets it apart from traditional AI methods?
Right. Okay. So, generative AI in general, as the name suggests, it refers to generating data, as in it might be an original content or it might be a data which statistically represents or mimics the real world data. So, it learns from patterns and basically the prompting from the user, and based upon that, it is able to give you relevant information. While traditional AI tasks are more focused on prediction mechanisms, classifications, regressions, simulations using some decision trees and everything, generative AI goes beyond that.
As you said, patterns in it, that the new gen AI is mostly based on patterns. So, what are those patterns? What did you exactly mean by that?
All right. When I tell you it goes on patterns, so in this scenario, I'll take an example of synthetic data generation. So, for training any model, it's obvious that you need some data, right? And believe me or not, in this world of data, you will still see that a lot of data is unstructured or it's not in a usable format directly. So you need to first of all convert it into a usable format. So let's say, for example, there's a data set where you need to predict if a user is going to join your company or not. So it depends upon what salary you're going to offer them, upon what education levels they have, the previous years of work ex and everything. So let's say you don't have any data at hand and you just go about randomly generating any data. So over here, you might end up training a model, but it might not work in your best scenario. The reason being is that you might not be able to capture the nuances or the hidden correlations behind the data, that you might not be able to capture the hidden patterns which actually exist, like the user's salary might depend upon uh, the education level and the work how much they have so far. So based upon those things, those are the statistical distribution patterns which you need to capture. And just giving an
Okay, sir.
example of synthetic data generation.
Yes, sir, yes.
Well, carrying forward, there's another question that I would love to ask you, sir. Um, Given your, extensive background in multiple domains and industries, how have you seen the role of generative AI evolve in predictive analysis across these industries? And could you also tell us more about what predictive analysis is all about?
All right. Okay. So, like the name predictive analytics is, it's about predicting things. Like in the example before I gave, like predicting if the customer will join, if the user will join the organization or not. That's another. How generative AI plays a role into it is, so again, I'll give an example. So taking the example of the healthcare industry, like we can simulate clinical trials or predict the outcomes, predict the patient outcomes or throughout their health journey, how this might happen. A classic example is Google's DeepMind. So they utilize generative AI to predict the patient's diseases they might end up with and identify potential health risks. So this will help them in order to identify it at a much prior stage, and preventive measures can be taken accordingly. Another example over here will be Uber's AI labs. So basically, they are trying to predict the rider demand in a particular area, and they are optimizing their pricing accordingly. This works similar to a simulation model, but yeah.
Well, looks like, we can relate to a lot of it that you've said. And also nowadays, it is quite, discussed. Like it's discussed quite often that AI will take over, several jobs across various domains. So what do you think is, what role do you believe generative AI will play in like shaping the future job landscape?
I mean, it's not wrong, honestly. If you see that generative AI has already taken up some of the jobs, like the repetitive and routine jobs, like basic content creation or basic content generation, data entry, then even customer support chatbots. So nowadays, if you raise, for example, food complaint in Zomato, you will see that almost 99.9% of the times the customer support is a chatbot. And it handles it entirely from end to end. Either it might say, I'm sorry, I cannot help you anymore, or it might end up giving you some part of refund or something. So this is just one example where some jobs are going away, like the customer centers, the contact centers, basically the agents and everything. But it will help promote new opportunities as well because it's not that advanced right now. I mean, whatever you prompt in AI, if you just open ChatGPT and you just start prompting about or asking some certain questions, it might not be accurate. So that's because the data that it has learned on is again vast, and it will the answers will depend upon that as well. So a human supervision is entirely necessary for that. So yes, jobs will go, but new AI-driven job roles will come as well.
Quite insightful. That is something that we've been learning about as well. Also, just adding on to, the previous question, do you like foresee generative AI leading to any job displacements, given that your answers also had a few mention of examples saying, that chatbots have come in and customer centers or, customer supports have been, quite lessened down. So do you foresee generative AI leading to job displacement or, does it create more opportunities for innovation and collaboration?
Uh, the answer is both. I mean, displacements are definitely going to happen. Like I said, the classic example, the contact centers, the agents are being replaced. But it's because the human costs are way too much. I mean, yeah, I'm not saying that the agents will disappear entirely because sometimes the AI chatbot might not be able to solve the user's query and the agents might still be required to represent it. Another example will be research analysts. Basically, earlier we had to go through entire reports and everything to find out different statistics uh, of industry trends, of uh, different market analysis and everything. But nowadays, you can simply upload that on ChatGPT or maybe just send an API request, and you will get all the information extracted out of it. So this talks in terms of displacement, but when you talk about new opportunities, yes, these will also be there. Like as AI is advancing, you require more people who need to integrate AI across different platforms, like data engineers. Then there might be model interpreters. Like you cannot blindly trust AI, right? What it's doing, like I said, it's still learning. It's not in that phase yet, which it can replace humans entirely. If you have seen the movie Terminator 3, you will understand my reference of Skynet over there. It's not at that stage. Um, so this data engineers, data analysts, AI model interpreters, and solution architects. These are still required, and of course, these will be combined with the domain experts, and together, hand in hand, the collaborations can be made. So
Okay, sir. So that very well answers the situation. But if we talk about workforces, in your view, what challenges will there be in terms of adapting existing workforces to adopt AI tools and technologies?
I mean, the first challenge that everyone faces is change, right? We are like, it's an inbuilt nature of the human being to resist a change. People will fear that they have to learn new skills or they will lose their jobs and everything. So, and this is a field where continuous innovations are happening and you need to be up to the industry trends. And this is just one thing. And basically, what happens is, so for example, an organization might already have their architecture, solution architecture, or they might have some existing systems which needs to be integrated with AI. These systems might not go hand in hand. And so you might need to implement a new solution entirely or replace part of the solution. You need to monitor, like, does that affect your current production or current sales, current revenue? Based upon that, you will be able to understand what needs to be done. So that integration problem is always going to be there. And I mean, I'm going to say this. This is more on ethical side rather than a revenue side. The security concerns, the data privacy concerns, and everything, because a data breach is always possible when it comes to AI and data leaks and data warehouse. That's why the cloud providers these days, like GCP, AWS, and Azure, they focus so much on data security and privacy. That's the sole purpose of their data warehouses. So yeah.
Okay, great insight, sir. Now, being a student, nowadays students are extensively using generative AIs in their day-to-day lives. We are curious to know from a student's perspective, what inspired you to specialize in areas like conversational AI and generative AI, and how can students identify their niche in such a vast field?
Right. So I personally had a fascination towards technology always. When I stumbled across the subject for AI and ML, I was very curious, and upon researching further, I found it very interesting. It actually depends on your personal interest, to be honest, but I don't think you can avoid AI at all in a world going forward. Specifically for conversational AI, so this is a problem which already existed. For example, if you might be familiar with the term of IVRs, interactive voice responses. Um, if not, basically, it's like when you call bank support or maybe Amazon for an Amazon return or something. You might hear for Hindi press one, for English press two. So
Yes,
this is a
yes,
classic
exactly, sir.
example. Yeah, that's a classic
Yes,
example of how the DTMF menu works, basically by pressing keys or something. But in this case, what happens is that the user has to wait to hear the entire option. They cannot speak freely, whatever they want. And this is something which has come up, basically natural language based IPRs. So if I just call up and I can say, I want to return my Nike shoes or something, and automatically the intent behind what I said is going to be detected and I'll be routed to the relevant subflow. So these are the advancements which are coming up, and this enhances the customer experience by a lot. And believe me, like there are so many industries, let's say retail, finance, utility, anything from like returning your order to paying your bank bills to paying your electricity bills, anything. All these organizations have a customer support center, and all this needs to be automated. So there's a huge potential in this domain.
very well, sir. It shows that there are positive sides that people mostly consider the negative side of AIs. Now, to end this podcast, I would like to ask, with generative AI evolving rapidly, what advice would you give to students preparing to enter the workforce about the key skills they should focus on?
Right. I'll just say this. You need to be alert with the industry trends which is going forward. I mean, and there's like no shortcut because generative AI utilizes natural language processing on the back end. And it's not like it came into power like just in the past 3 4 years. It is existing since 2010 or 8, I think. But yeah. So I'll just say you cannot escape like going through the basics, the statistics, but and you also need to understand how the actual nuances work in the backend so that you will be able to get better results or generate more optimal solutions for what you require. So that being said, in fact, the world is shifting from large language models. We are going to specialize language models because of the latency issues and the costing issues and everything. So these also need to be taken into account. This is one thing. Second is generative AI takes into account the natural language processing on it under the hood, and you cannot uh, hope to know generative AI better if you skip unstructured data handling and natural language processing. So you need to know the basics, and probably some coding might help as well over there.
Okay, sir, that's a great advice, sir. As we conclude this insightful discussion on the impact of generative AI, we extend our heartfelt thanks to our speaker for sharing their expertise and visionary outlook on the topic. As we look forward, let's remember that generative AI is more than just a technology. It's a driving force for innovation, collaboration, and limitless possibilities. Thank you to all our listeners for tuning in. Stay tuned for the next episode of On Air with AdCom.